All right, so we carry on. Lesson 135. All right, so, we were talking about this thing called the ego, but you can ignore it, and you learn in meditation. In the Sufis, I remember I started doing Sufi meditation. What we're doing in Sufi meditation is you're setting an intention, but you have this idea God's coming to you. So I strongly recommend in all your meditations you set an intention that you're there for God's purposes, some version of that. And have the idea God's coming to you. And that's what lesson 189 says. God knows the way to you. And forget this course. Forget everything you think you know, and just sit and allow him to come. He knows how to polish your heart and bring you. We just need to take our hands off and let him, and stop being so gripped onto the concepts and things that we think we have. And that's what this is all about. And so your heart has the ability to do everything that this says, Now, do we do it all the time? No, because we're not perfect. We're egoholics and we're slipping and all that. So the Course gives us a lot of things to do that seem impossible, even if we do allow our hearts, like having perfectly healthy bodies and stuff like that. But or even remembering that all your brothers are beings of light, or have light in them and are innocent and stuff like that. Does everybody do that all day long? No, because we're running in our egos. But we can want to. Do you believe it's true? Okay, we believe it's true. Do we know we can't do it? Yes. So what does it cause us to do? So if we believe it's true, know we can't do it, and we want it, and we're willing to have it, oh yeah, willingness is the only thing he asks for in this equation. So where does that put you? In total surrender. It puts you at step 1 of a 12-step program. I can't do this. I am powerless. Step 2, a power greater than me can restore me to sanity. Step 3, I give my life and my will over to that higher power. That's steps 1, 2, and 3 in the 12-step process. So, and I think the Course does that a lot to us on purpose, because the ego can't get there. But we want it and we believe it, and that's okay. So then we just have to ask, and it puts in a state. It completely cuts spiritual ego off at the knees. Because you realize you believe it, and you can't get there no matter what you do. And then you get it, it's not you doing it. And we end up with this total dependent relationship on God. And right now, I'll bet you if I say you have to be 100% dependent on God for everything, is there not a part of you that just resists that right now? Like just go, a little tension. That's normal, because that's the ego going, screw that. I don't want that at all. But that's okay, we're ignoring that thing, because that's what it does. It's like a computer program. It's an habitual computer program, whatever, that we have to deal with. And the answer is that we do our best to do our practices. So that's what I got on that. And it gives you this idea that a healed mind is relieved of the belief it must plan, because you don't know what outcome is best. You don't know. You think, I really need to get to that meeting. What you didn't know is that if you insist on that, there's a car accident waiting for you on the way, or if you get there, you missed some other meeting you were supposed to have. There's so many things we don't know. One of the best examples I use for this is who you're going to get married to, as an example, because that's one of the biggest decisions that we don't really decide on our kids at a level of form, but and everybody has calculations, but it's in the end, because you're going to be with this person for a long time, in theory, many decades. You have no clue what could happen. Who you could, it's in everything else in life is a bit more short term, but that's like the longest term kind of decision-ish that you make. You have no clue. Think about that. Where we're marrying this person, where it leads you, what, good, bad, no idea. So so you can kind of get to an idea of, wow, I have no clue. I really genuinely want to give that one to God, because I really don't know. I have no idea. And then you can reverse engineer and go, I have no idea if I take this job, what's going to happen. No idea. My ego says it looks good, but how do I know? And anybody that started a new job, once you get the job, most of the time it's 90% of what happens is totally what you didn't know from the beginning. We even find with meetings, I do a lot of business meetings. I've developed this thing where half of what happens in meetings, we never even thought we were going to talk about before the meeting. I just noticed this pattern over many meetings. So it's only when you meet with people, half of what you talk about and what's accomplished is never what was envisioned. It's hilarious when people try and ultra plan meetings. Here's the agenda. Here's what we're going to do. It's not the way it works. So there's something else going on, and I can be more like a surfer and in the flow of that. And so if I have to be in the flow of something bigger than me, because that's the true nature of reality. This is not a choice. This is like, I'm just saying to you, this is how it works. Does anybody know how many times their heart's beat in the last 10 minutes? It shows you how out of control we are for most things. So I might as well be getting information or inspiration about how to be in a perfect alignment with that. And that's, I think, this is what is getting, that a healed mind does receive plans, something like that. And then life can become really easy because there's just a flow to it that's not of you, and it's not your responsibility either, you know. And it's not my responsibility to even do a good seminar. You know, it'll be what it'll be, and we always do that, you know. And Eileen's done all of them with me, and they end up being what they're going to be, and everyone seems to get a lot out of them, but you can't. Or you know, a trip or something, you just have to trust it's part of a higher plan. And so there's, instead of this constant analysis of what did I do right, what did I do wrong, you know, so something like that, and life becomes a lot easier. Then it says self-initiated plans are but defenses. So the reason for this is, if this is true, that there is a flow, that it is what it is, and if I've set the intention to wake up, my biggest intention is I want God's plan for awakening. Don't settle for less intentions. You know, don't settle for, ego will try and get you to have spiritual goals, which are, I want to have a better relationship with my mother. You know, that's fine, but that, just like I want to have peanut butter for dinner tonight or something, there's no problem with that. But you should have in the back of your mind that these are just intermediary ego-based goals. What I really want is full remembrance of God, because I'm only on this planet, you know, in this way, being able to study this material for a few years. I want the big goal. I'm not going to let the ego trick me into halfway houses, into little measures. And so because of that, there's this plan flowing or whatever. If I try and introduce my own plans, and defend, which is basically a defense, you know, I'm going to interfere with that. I'm going to mess with it. I'm going to play music that's not in alignment with the rest of you guys, and it's not going to work. You know, the center of the universe thing. And so that's what he means by defenses. We're creating, the ego's a story machine, and it's created all these stories about what I need to do, and it's telling me I need to do this and this and this and this to make sure this goes the way I want it to go. That's a defense. Instead of saying, remember, you have two voices. You can only, and they're mutually exclusive. Saying, Holy Spirit, how would you have me see this? What would you have me do? Let me be in alignment with your plan. Now, Holy Spirit will not talk to you in English very much. Do you know why? Because he wants to teach you to hear him with your heart. Because the heart is so much bigger, its ability to understand. And you'll generally get the inspirations in the present moment. You'll just know what to do at the time. Sometimes he tells you ahead of time. You know, go to Eileen's, book an airline ticket. You know, I do a lot of planning, and I'm told when to plan. But that planning happens in the present moment. Now it's time to plan this today. Today's the day when you're going to book your travel for California in 6 months. Okay. When I try and do it on the wrong day, it doesn't work. I don't get the right. You know, there's a flow to absolutely everything. And you can be in alignment with that. To mess with it becomes a defense, because you think you need to do this to protect yourself, and you end up interfering with the flow. And then your life is uncomfortable. It doesn't seem to work. You know, so something like that. And and the mind doesn't think it'll be provided for unless it makes its own provisions. There's not a trusting that everything comes from, you know, God. Our very existence comes from God. We are totally dependent. You know, whatever that's going to be, and that kind of thing. So, and that's a whole subject in itself. Okay, and what else do I want to say about this? And it says, if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and future, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is for your good. So that's the curriculum. The good is the only good from God's perspective is that you remember him, that you join with him. And that's what this game is really about. All the little ego-based life goals are actually kind of meaningless. You know, nobody's going to care in 70 years what you're worried about today. That's not going to matter. The spiritual work that you did right now will matter in 70 years or 100 years, because you create a momentum and trajectory, you know, that carries on. But none of the body-based stuff really does. So, you know, these are all ways of getting leverage on ourselves to do our practice right. So the Buddhists are very good at this. So talking about remembering, you know, what the priorities are and stuff. Okay. And that, you know, it's just constant reassurances that everything we need for our accomplishment will be given us today. We may not make no plans for how it will be done. The change I make to this is, it's not like before you read this and were course students, that it was this arbitrary world and now suddenly Holy Spirit streams in. It's not like before GPSs, you had to figure out how to get around, and now we have a GPS in an old world. I think more what this is describing is the way the world always worked, and now it's helping you be in alignment with it. There was always a flow, and there was always a trajectory. You were always waking up, your ego was just kicking and screaming. So it's describing a flow, and Taoism is all about this, right, a flow to things. And, you know, even the Buddhists, there's this karmic engine that there's a flow to things, and this is a whole discussion in itself. When I bring that up, if you've studied that at all, but it's not arbitrary. So it's teaching us how to be more in alignment with that, what always was. It's just a Western belief that the world is arbitrary, and we, through mental effort and intelligence, can manipulate and do everything we want, and that's what leads us to an ego-based view of reality that's quite negative, and, that kind of thing. So, okay, if there are plans to make, I'll be told of them. They may not be the plans I thought I needed, nor indeed the answers that I thought confronted me. As you practice this process, and it says this in the epilogue, as you start to listen to Holy Spirit and make that a priority, remember you have to choose to do that. It's practice. You get good at it, and you start. I'm like that now. I'm like, okay, I don't need to fight against life. It does flow just fine. And you can listen. And sometimes my ego screams, but you can kind of learn to ignore that. And meditation is helpful. So there is a flow. We will be told. And just because the ego doesn't agree with it, who cares? It's a neurotic mess anyway. So that kind of thing. So and then you're going to say, well, does that mean I don't use my intelligence at all? Oh, absolutely. The ego is a dumb servant, remember. The Holy Spirit uses the ego all the time. The Holy Spirit is using my ego right now to speak English, as an example. But I'm not doing it on my own. I showed up tonight. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I got a bit of inspiration, and but he definitely uses our intellects. He needs my ability to calculate to book airline tickets, and he knows exactly how to work through us. And so this isn't about disconnecting and switching off brain. Anything but that. In the present moment, that's who we are is being used. Right now, if all of you guys spoke German, I wouldn't be of very much use, would I? Or if I only spoke French or something like that and not English. And so, see, everything's in perfect alignment. And it's like that. We use what we have, and it turns out we need that in the present moment. So, try not to shape the stage you believe would benefit you most. And see, if you don't do that, gosh, and you just receive what's happening and receive that God is arising in everything all the time, it's a much more enjoyable way to live. Because it's not this, what ego is doing is constantly telling us how whatever we're getting is dissatisfactory. It hasn't been enough, I haven't done it right, it's endless. If we learn we don't have to listen, it's going to do this thing, it's going to go yada, yada, yada. But we learn, the ego's not fixable, but it just becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and you can learn to ignore it. And it's okay, Mr. Ego. You're like a little 4-inch TV over there in the corner. And you can play, but I don't have to listen to you. I can rest in my heart. I can go back. And mantras are really good for this because they get us to anything to get us to turn back to God. Prayers, mantras. The course has every 15 minutes, that kind of stuff. And you learn you want to do this more. So, okay. So that's kind of my commentary on that. Has anybody got any inspirations?
All good. Great.
I have a question. As you said, like the relationship is the biggest decision we may make, and
it's the most long term. Yeah.
So how do we know if it's our ego better than that, for sure? Whether it's a blonde or I don't know, whatever.
That's a good point.
Do I look
for a blonde? See, that's a lower mind calculation.
I know it is.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's a great example.
But there's a big interference there. And should
Absolutely.
I be compromising what I'm doing? I've got a plan. Should I kind of move my plan and meet?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like all those silly things.
But those are all calculations. And then the old childhood kicks in. Maybe I'm not worthy enough, and I should just submit and do what I'm not sure it does in your case. But there's a million of them. You get a combination of calculation, neurosis, fear, patterns. The ego's very habitual. 70% of what you're doing is just a habit. It just did it, So, it's a really good question because you know what? If you're involved with someone, especially that's why I like talking about this particular decision because it could be long term. It's incredibly emotional, and it drives, it pushes on all the buttons. So if we can manage that one, we can kind of manage everything else, can't we? So it's a great question, and so you could glean the way I'm talking. That we just turn to Holy Spirit and the ego never bothers me with the should he be blonde or brunette. That isn't so. The ego is screaming it. Yes, but right? Absolutely. So and the idea is that the Holy Spirit knows all about your ego. What he needs is your asking. What you need to do is perpetually be determined that you want his answer, and you ask him to work through your ego and please help you not to make any mistakes. and trust that he knows exactly all about your ego and how to work through it. He doesn't need your ego to be fixed, and it won't be. What will calm the ego down is meditation, because what happens in meditation is you start to rest in your heart, and it becomes more of a center. It's as if it's like your ego's over here, and we're mesmerized on it. You know when you're looking at your iPhone at the news and you just get addicted? Everyone get that addicted moments with the news and what's going to happen, and you just can't turn it, and finally you turn the damn thing on. It's like that, and you rest in something different. It's very similar to that. And all he needs is us to make an effort. So all you have to do is know about this teaching and say, I get it. I can't do it. Do you think any alcoholic can stop drinking? They would have 20 years ago if they could. No, when they get into AA, they have to say step one, I am powerless. My life is unmanageable. That's the starting point. No one in AA asks you to have the willpower to stop the alcoholic thoughts or the craving. No one asks you to do that. What they do ask you to do is get on your knees and do step one and say, I'm powerless. Step one, step two, there's a power greater than me. Step three, I'm going to ask it. And I have seen more people stop drinking after years of drinking instantly. It is amazing, with no training, none of our training. So, you just have to say, this is what I really want. I won't be able to manage it, my head will be screaming at me, but I'm going to somehow do the best I can to ask on my knees, God, this is his decision, knowing that I'm a neurotic mess around this.
But if our only aim is to connect with God, then we may kind of say, well, I shouldn't be with anyone, I should just be connecting with God. Everything else is distraction.
More spiritual ego.
It's the ego.
Spiritual ego. It's calculation. See, that's a calculation. By the way, our only aim, I wouldn't say our only aim is to connect with God. If that works for you, that's totally cool. For me, it's more, my goal is to be on God's plan, whatever it is. That means I'm going to be with lots of people in different formats, and he uses them all. He uses them, some of them to reflect me, some of them for forgiveness lessons, some of them for, and I have no way of judging that because I can't see it. I just want to make sure I'm on his plan with the people I'm meant to be with. That's it.
Thank you.
So, that's what's worked for me. Again, there's no truth here. There's only my sharing my experience. That's important. So, it's a great question, though. That's a big one. Anybody else?
I remember, just in connection with that, when I first came to hear you talk, and you talked about this.
And you're still here.
I
came back.
And I asked you, because we were talking about hearing voice, and sometimes people hear a voice, telling them to do things, and I'd never heard anything, and sometimes people feel it, and I said, how do you know that it's not ego, and how do you know it's the voice of God? And you said, and I thought that was really good, you said, which is connection with what you say, is that you'll just have a sense of peace, which I think is a good guide, because if you're like wondering if you're looking for a partner, and your ego is always trying to sabotage it and say the things you were just saying, but if you had peace, ego would just be, so you can recognize it perhaps that way, when you have that sense of peace, when you're not asking all these questions about, is he this or is he that, or, I don't know.
Yeah, the ego cannot speak with a peaceful voice. It's not possible.
So critical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's energy, and you can feel it. These are pointing out instructions. Everyone has to experience this themselves. But the Holy Spirit speaks, it's a sense. And remember, in the beginning, we talk about the Holy Spirit giving us directions like a GPS. But in the end, Ken Wapnick said this best. He said, you're inviting the Holy Spirit into your heart, and he animates through you. So the connection is spontaneous. And so when you start to talk, it's coming through you because you asked for that. And so it's the same thing with this kind of thing. You can ask, please let me, and you'll be going in your mind, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to have a word with them, I'm going to see them in 5 minutes. You get in front of the person, and totally different words come out because you said a prayer before. I say a prayer before every single person I interact with, because I don't want my ego coming through. And remember, the Holy Spirit's working through your ego. He knows my ego. He knows how to trick my ego. And so he kind of knows all about your ego. So with that sense of peace, but he's not interested in having a dialogue with your ego, which is why he doesn't speak in English very much. Remember, if he's speaking in English, he's telling your ego something. Now, sometimes he does that. I got very clear, the voice, the loudest I ever heard said, go study meditation with the Buddhists in 1999. I'd never studied Buddhism. I came out of the blue. And so I went and did it, and there's my whole life story. It was amazing. But it was in English, but apparently he knew that I would respond to that. My ego would, and he was right. But 99% of the time, he'd much rather have me have a real-time sense, and having that, it's an interactive sense, I don't know how else to put it, versus this backwards and forwards dialogue. Because remember, if I'm listening to what he's saying, I'm listening with my lower mind, right? No, I want to be residing in my higher mind, where it's an always-on connection. I call it spiritual broadband. It's an always-on. I have this sense all the time, just in the moment, on the dot, of this flowing, and that's a very peaceful sense. Even if you're not peaceful, if you get on your knees and pray and say, make sure I don't make the wrong decision here, he knows how to trick your ego, don't worry. But that is a good thing. If you're trying to get a sense of what Holy Spirit wants, and the sense of Holy Spirit of the higher mind is it is inherently peaceful. It's not a state of mind, it's its nature. You know, people always talk about peace as a state of mind. I always say, if you're looking for a state of mind, go to the pub and have 3 shots of vodka and you'll have some peace. But it won't last. The state of mind you're looking for is like the sky. It's always the sky. You know, it's always there. But the ego can be very noisy, like the clouds in the sky blot out the sun temporarily. But eventually you practice and they subside and you get a sense of that. It never goes anywhere, and you can trust that. But more importantly, sometimes we're so racked with the decision and anger and stuff that we can't see straight and we can't access that. Don't worry about it. If you ask for the right thing to happen, he'll work through it. And you can kind of trust that. Because you ask. Ask and he shall answer. In Happy Dreams section says his job is to answer, your job is to ask. Do not try and remove the fear and guilt from your mind before you come to him. That's his job. It says. How many times does spiritual ego say, well, in order to hear this, I have to let go of this guilt, let go of this fear, let go of this problem with my mother or whatever. It says that's not your job. Your job is simply to do one thing, and that's to ask God and be dependent. What you're doing by trying to fix yourself is doing just the opposite. You're saying, implying that you could fix yourself. Something like that. So that's good. Yeah, the sense of peace is helpful. Anybody else?
I think when kind of in line with what you are saying is kind of sublime simplicity, that when things are very simple, that kind of flow in a very simple way, which is kind of the inner peace that you were saying. It seems that kind of you are in the right way somehow.
Yeah, the present moment is actually quite simple.
Yeah.
The present moment is actually generally quite straightforward. It's the stories around it that get complicated. The ego's a story machine. Isn't it cool? We can ignore all. Ignore. It's cool, let it go. Little dog. You have a little dog, you have a little dog. Yip, 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 yip. It's cool. That's what those little dog does, the ego story machine. But it can't get us unless we pay attention to it. Isn't it interesting in other traditions that have the concept of like a devil? The devil has no power unless you listen to it. They were trying to convey the same kind of teaching to simpler people that didn't have big this kind of thing. But it's the same idea. We don't have to listen. And we can use our superpower of intention to say only what God's plan. And if I forget, I'll just remember, and it'll be okay. It's when we deliberately choose to be with ego and add to those thoughts, and we deliberately know we should be going to Holy Spirit, but we don't, that's when we're in trouble, because now we've made a conscious decision. We've used our superpower of intention to choose for ego, and that's that you want to avoid. So if you catch yourself, you'll do it, but if you catch yourself doing it, you go back. And it's important not to be neurotic about this. This is gentle. Yeah, you've got an ego, it's going to run, it's going to do throughout the day, everybody's going to, that's no big deal. He more wants us to ask in the morning, give gratitude in the evening, do some meditation, join with our brothers, do a course lesson, keep it light, but do it. And it's more like a love affair with a partner. You don't want to become neurotic, but you do want to buy the flowers if you're a man and say I love you a couple times a day and give him a hug and do something you know what I mean? It's like that. The intention is there, but it doesn't have to be neurotic. So that's as an analogy, obviously. But anybody else?
I really feel this sense of saying something now.
Sure.
Because I asked today morning for a miracle of a sign, and it's just the way I came through the email to this group and what was said here, and particularly by you, it feels like I feel like are you talking about me? Because I can resonate with so much, and I was actually asking really for the whole day for something, for a sign, because I felt this fear creeping in back again. So I've been a student of Course of Miracles for a few months, and I had this feeling from the first day that this is it. It's
Yeah,
like,
you're one of us.
it's
You're stuck with this now, by the way.
I
It's
know.
called the Scary Blue Book.
That's very true.
I'm really sorry about that.
But
I would have directed you elsewhere, but it's not up to me.
But I just knew it. It was like
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Yeah,
And this gentle voice said, "Yes, I've been waiting for you." It was like
right.
I really had the voice,
Yeah,
and it was scary because if you knew me in the past, I was a control freak,
yeah.
and I was
Your ego is control free.
my ego was controlling me.
You're a holy
actually.
son of, a daughter of God, perfectly innocent and safe.
Exactly. I'm learning.
Your ego, yeah.
But so this lesson is beautiful. I'm not there yet. I'm not in this lesson. But when I read it, when I think about every person I met who made me cry or made me
Yeah.
laugh, made me feel something, I know that was a bigger plan. Because if I hadn't been in such a pain 6 months ago, I wouldn't have surrendered. I didn't have enough suffering, and then I just like, okay, I'll just give it a try. I really thought like, if there is somebody, maybe I will hear him or her. I was just not willing to. My ego was like, no, don't do it. I was like, I'll just give it a try, and then I asked for a sign, and I got 2 signs in 20 minutes, and then once I was like testing it, like it's impossible. I think maybe I'm getting crazy. So I asked for a sign. Is it normal? Is it like people speak to me? It's like Holy Spirit speaking through them, and they give me answers to my questions and even to my thoughts. So once I remember I was going home and I just couldn't believe all this, and I was like, give me a sign that there's something good, that I'm on the right path, because I can feel it, but I still lack this trust. And it was a few minutes later when I was reading the book, the course in the bus, and I just felt this urge to look up, and in front of me in this busy bus was a man, and it was cold, but on his jacket he was wearing a t-shirt, green t-shirt, with the sentence, "Don't wait till you're certain." And I just like, thank you. I decided to trust. And I was like, what can I say? Because I felt this tremendous joy and this peace, but also the certainty that this is a sign I asked for and I received. So what else can I expect? What else can I ask for? So I found people to talk about that. But the thing is that, when I asked for the miracle, my question is, as you said, you can't start to learn to ignore the voice of the ego. And I've been in the moments when I made the decision to stay with that fearful thoughts, and I know it's wrong, but it just for a moment it grabs me, and I think, oh, I'll never get there. And then I listen, because I listen to the audiobook, I listen randomly to some reading, and then this says everything works for the best, there are no exceptions except in ego's judgment. And I think okay, this is a part of my journey, and the doubts and the fear, they just don't want to let me go, let me
That's
go
right.
through it. Is it right?
That's right.
So what can I do in the moments of temptation, apart from praying?
One thing, ask.
Asking.
Say, I'm giving this to the Holy Spirit, and move on, and trust He'll work through you. Invite Him into your heart to animate you, and you can have a thing of literally invite Him in and say, live in. And once He's invited in, He never leaves. He. Now, the biggest thing I'd say to you is that you've been given a lot of. Then this happens. A lot of big signs early on, and that's given us a support. Don't expect that, because the problem with signs is the ego can really get a hold and run with them. And I've seen this happen more often when people get guidance in English and stuff. It's not helpful, because then you start turning Holy Spirit into a short order cook. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Should I do the blue one or the red one? And he's thinking, he's thinking whatever, but God, I don't want you buying a car at all. What are you doing on the car lot? You're telling me the blue. And there's a section called Rules for Decision that covers this. The only thing we should say is, I have no questions, I forgot what to decide, thine will be done. And in the letter for prayer, it talks about this. The only prayer we have is to know God's will. So we get out of this. expectation of question and dialogue. Because who would be doing the dialogue? It's the lower mind, it's the ego, right?
Mhm.
Instead of saying, thine will be done,
Mhm.
that's on our lips, thine will, let it come through me. So you've got a journey, but trust he's in you and he's going to take you on a journey. And the number one thing I tell you is set your intentions. Every morning prayers, every evening gratitude, and do the course. But number two is then just relax. Your ego, your spiritual ego is going to try and get in all kinds of places and all kinds of, and don't worry about it. Just keep going, keep going. Buddha's going to say, gati, 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 parama, gati, keep going. And so with the course, one lesson a day. Don't do the, sorry. Don't do the lesson perfectly, or you think you will. Don't try and understand the lesson. If you, whatever you get is fine, and go to the next one. It's very important you get to the end of the workbook. This advice I give you. Remember this? We had this discussion. Remember my advice about the work? Can you tell her, share this with her?
Well, first time I went to hear Ken speak, and I was on lesson 50 at that time, and I was stuck. I've been on, I haven't gone, you know, I used to spend like 4 or 5 days on lessons. So I asked him, how do you get through this and do one lesson a day? And you said, you just don't get hung up on it, because I was trying to do it so correctly, and if I failed it, I said, right, I'll do it again tomorrow, I'll do it better. And I just got bored with it, you know. So when you just said, just kind of lighten up and just do it, and then actually I set myself a kind of goal each day, which really helped, which I could move on to the next lesson if I just read the lesson. So I didn't have to do any meditations or anything. If I'd at least read the lesson, then I could move on. And then I did it in just over a year.
Yeah, and at Christmas I came and you said, thank you so much for that.
Yes,
I got
it's
through it, and
great.
it makes you hit lesson 365 and something shifts. And so
And I
it's
still read
important.
your pathways every day. Your pathways of light lessons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I read those every day. And sometimes.
Well, we all have our different practices. Holy Spirit gives
Yeah.
them to us.
Yeah.
But just do the lesson. I would say if you do 75% of the lesson, move on.
But it's really great because it answers my question, because I'm exactly in the situation I hang up on one lesson for 2 days, and then I'm busy
Move on.
and I go off, and then I think, okay, I can't even start reading the next one.
So that's your right. If you do 75% of the lesson at a C level, meaning ABC.
Is the best or the
No,
worst?
yeah, he's the best.
Okay.
A C means just okay,
Okay.
passing. 75% out of passing, we'll move on to the next one. It's fine. Now that's a judgment, but it gives you a sense of it. You know, say it asks you to do a practice 3 times a day and you do it 2. That's fine.
Yeah.
Say it asks you to do a practice every 5 minutes and you're able to do the 5-minute thing, you know, some of the time, enough to get the gist of it or whatever, move on. You know, that kind of thing. And it's important. You're going to have plenty of time to do these lessons over again. You'll be at this for the rest of your life. So, but it's important to get through the workbook the first time. And you're never, and it's a joke that ego thinks it's getting a lesson right or whatever. It's really funny after you've done this for a few years, because you start to go back to those lessons and go, I didn't understand that at all. So there's no point in you worrying about it. But doing it is, see, what you're really doing. Doing it is demonstrating the intention. It's sorry.
Yeah, or sometimes even, you know, just reading it and I don't even know what I've read, but I'm going to read the next one the next day, because you just, you know that you actually go through it, because next time you come back to it and you see it, but you know, you pick up, I think at different times, isn't it, the thing that you need to pick up.
Yeah, and my suggestion would be, if it asks you to do something for 5 minutes, is to do it.
To do it.
Yeah, because why aren't you doing it?
Well,
Yeah, so that it's that'd be, and then none of them are particularly hard, right? It's always 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, you know. So if it asks you to do something for 15 minutes and you do it for 9 minutes, whatever, fine, you know, it's like that. But we should do the lessons. They're to be done, you know. They're not intellectual. There's a book. So anyway, what happens is the lessons are movie trailers, and there's energy vortex behind them. And so when you do the lesson, you open up the energy vortex. And you get something that comes into your heart. All religious texts are like, Eckhart Tolle talks about this. All religious texts are the ink on the paper that talks to the intellectual mind is just the surface level. They say the Quran is on 7 levels, you know, and the level we read with our intellectual mind on paper is just the kindergarten. And so you can learn that you can read the religious text with your heart, and that you're getting way more out of it. So you can go through and recite the Bible, for example, and not really remember what you recited, but something was transmitted. into the heart. And the Course is like that. Most of what you're getting, your ego can't see. It desperately wants it to be in that paragraph and understand it. I can tell you from doing this for 25 years, that ain't what this is about. This book, this is a small part of what this book is. There's a giant vortex of energy that when you make the effort to connect with it, it transmits awakening energy too, and think of it as cleanser for your heart. But you have to do it. If you have cleanser in your cupboard, it's no good there, is it? You got to put it on the cloth and spread it around. Look at it that way. So every time you're reading the lessons, doing the lessons, turning back to God or whatever, the cleanser's active, and you're getting transmissions every time you're reading this. When you read it with your brothers, you get triple points. So because that when we in community, there's a huge torque that's in every tradition, and so but that's what's really going on. It's our intellectual minds aren't aware of it. So because of that, we can all relax. We don't know what's going on anyway, but we just have to do it. We have to show up to our meetings. We have to do our lessons, our morning prayers. My practice is morning prayer, setting intention, evening prayer with gratitude. Gratitude creates enormous energy. Just think of 10 things you're grateful for. Get on your knees and thank God. If they're the same every day, so what? Great. Healthy body, nice place to live, enough money to eat. Say it every day. Why not? It creates gratitude. Gratitude is an energy, just like grievance is an energy. It's not about the grievance. It's about the energy of grievance. Buddha said, if you have a grievance against somebody, it's like drinking poison, hoping that they'll die when you're the one drinking the poison. So we don't want grievances, so we give grievances to the Holy Spirit. Remember, we don't try and do anything ourselves. Do not do, like, the Holy Spirit's like a dentist. Don't try and do your own dental work. Our job is to sit in the chair. That's the intention part of letting him, do it. But so you just keep going and just relax. This is a long-term process. But keep at it. The lessons are great because you keep at it, and then he'll give you other practices. And there's a lot of meditations, and I really encourage people to pay attention to lesson 360 because that's where the lessons take you. Don't do it till you get there. But when you see meditations, do it. Sorry.
Do we have time for a meditation, or do people want to go? I mean, can we sort of weave into something from 360 to finish on? Or?
That'll take a while. I don't know. We're kind of past our time, aren't we?
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. This has been good.
Maybe we should.
Does anybody else have a last question? If you want it, my seminar on the 22nd is going to be all about the esoteric practice of connecting with the heart and what I've learned from the other traditions. It's all in the Course, but the other traditions help me understand what the Course says. I sat in Buddhist master's courses for 2.5 years, and the Holy Spirit was in my ear going, this is what I meant, this is what I meant, this is what I meant. It wasn't about me learning about Buddhism, it was about, you didn't get it. That was a lot of that was a personal thing, so, and it motivated me, but the one thing they used to say in Buddhism is gate, 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 paramagate. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep practicing, keep going. The path is unfolding, it's all just fine. Keep setting your intention. That's the biggest thing you can do. Your superpower is your ability to choose. Keep making an effort. We only need to make an effort. We do not need to achieve. Willingness is all that's required, but we do need to do that a little bit. That's hence the prayer on the knees in the morning is helpful. Just to say, okay, my ego's going to control me most of the day, but I'm willing to acknowledge I really want you more than anything. Help me out here. I can't do it. What do you think the average alcoholic does who's drunk for 20 years, completely uncontrollably? They have to rely on something bigger. We're egoholics, we're the same. So, something like that. Okay?
Thank you so much. It's
Wow, that went by quick.
I know, it goes by so quickly. Listening to you again, it reminds me how part of the process is forgetting and then being reminded. We forget. We need constant reminders. Why we have weekly study groups. It's why you read again and again and you practice every day. We forget, and it's okay. So we remind. That's just part of the process. So, but we don't just forget intellectually, because the intellect's not that important. The intellect just gets you to set the intention. That's what the 500,000 words are for, to get you to do it. Right? A lot of people I know don't need 500,000 words. They just do it. On my Sufi groups, there's no talking or reading or anything. People just practice. I can't have that. I need this plus everything to convince me to sit on my butt and actually do my practice. And so, but yeah, so we forget. But it's okay to forget because you can be reminded. So. Thank you very much indeed for coming over and giving us a bit of a refresher and a bit of a boost as well.
I hope so. Thank you guys all. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great. Well, we won't meditate because I think we're a bit out of time, but it's been a lovely way to finish. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
So,
Great.
you don't have to dash out. You can stay for half an hour or so if you want to mingle with people. And, if anybody is free on the day of Ken's workshop, Marina was going to film his workshop, but she may be travelling. So if any of you know somebody who'd like to attend the workshop and would be willing to film it as professionally as possible, you do?
Can do it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. There you go.
Your answer.
It's in a lovely place on Russell Square, near Russell Square. It's an art gallery. It's got a beautiful courtyard. You can't be afraid of heights. It's up a sort of stairwell, like one of those fire escapes. But once you get there, it's this gorgeous sort of club room.
What's it called?
And it's called the October Gallery.
Yeah, I know the gallery.
It's very near Russell Square. I think it's George Street or something like that. It's kind of like on the eastern. It's one of those roads that's just parallel to the eastern side of Russell Square.
Okay.
It's really close to Queen Square. Just off there.
So that information's on the meetup group, is it?
It's